So I just received my iPad Pro M4 together with the accessories, and as you know, I'm a big fan of the iPad. Many of my most popular videos are on topics that surround the iPad, so I'm super excited to finally see Apple changing this hardware and making some bigger changes after focusing on the Mac for so long. It's been a long time since I've been this excited to unbox a new product, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. My goal today is to give you a very honest first impression and explain a little why I got this, because it's very expensive and the price was raised even compared to the predecessor. So for now, I just want to unbox it and give you my honest feedback because I've never seen this in real life. Let me just go ahead and really start with the main star of the show, the iPad Pro. So I decided to go with the 13-inch model just because I like the bigger screen, and I want to try to make this my main machine for a while just to see how far Apple has come. That's also why I've gone for the 1TB version. I would have liked to be able to get away with the 512 gigabytes, but you can't get 16 gigabytes of RAM unfortunately, and also not the better M4 chip. Okay, so this is really this is crazy thin. I did not expect this to be this thin. Let me see. This is crazy. As you can see, I went for the silver one. I think silver is just a very classic look. As I live in the EU, I do not get a charging brick in here, and also no Apple stickers, which honestly, I don't really care about the loss of the Apple stickers. I never really use them. I have like a bunch of them lying around. The charging brick's more annoying. Then again, they always only ship the 20-watt one with the iPad, so I don't know, it's not a big loss. Still kind of annoying because it's a very expensive device. Okay, so let's put this box aside for now. Take the iPad out of the wrap and see it for the first time. So some ASMR for you right there. And if you didn't notice on the Apple keynote, they talked about the Apple logo now being made of copper to act as a heat pipe, which is kind of cool to actually have a functional Apple logo on this one. This is really thin, and like the weight difference on the 13-inch is really noticeable. There we see the changed camera. All right, let's move on. The Apple Pencil Pro actually has like 5 different packaging types where you kind of get one of them, and I think this is a really cool touch. I wasn't sure about the Apple Pencil Pro branding, but I think it makes sense now to have the Apple Pencil with USB-C and the Apple Pencil Pro from now going forward, so I think it kind of makes sense, and it's also not more expensive than the existing Apple Pencil, although I think honestly it should look exactly the same as the outgoing model. There we have it, Apple Pencil Pro. Okay, this Pencil Pro. You can see the engraving. Looks quite neat, but yeah, not like a big thing. For me, honestly, what I'm most excited for is this one right here, the updated Magic Keyboard. This should look much cooler, the trackpad should feel much better, we have a function row, and this is really, I think, what makes this product kind of work as a laptop replacement, at least I hope. I tried with the old iPad, but that was like 4 years ago, so without Stage Manager and many of the software changes like Final Cut. So we'll have to see, but I'm super excited about this one. Obviously also in white to match the iPad. Okay. Oh wow, it looks much more like a laptop, and the trackpad is actually off, which is kind of funny because on the old one it was a real click, but here now it's supposed to work like on a Mac. We can compare the thickness. From the weight, it's now supposed to be really close to an M2 MacBook Air, so that's quite cool. But the thickness, I think, has not changed a lot. This is an M2 iPad Pro, and it's a little thinner, but I think if it was more, they would have bragged about it more, so it's really not that different. On the iPad itself, it's really noticeable, especially on the 13-inch model, because that was thicker before, but with the keyboard, it kind of becomes the same thickness. Also, on the outside, we still have this kind of rubbery material on both sides. So yeah, they'll probably not really age that well, but that's kind of what you get. But what's cool is that on the inside here, around the keyboard, if you look very closely, there's a rubber gasket just to protect the screen, so that's quite nice. Anyways, I think I'm just gonna set this up right now. We'll do a quick cut, and then I'll see you right back here as soon as I logged in and kind of had the first couple of minutes with it. Alright, so after the first couple of minutes with the iPad setting everything up, I first had to install a day one software update, of course, but then I got to use it for the first time, and my takeaways are, honestly, It doesn't feel hugely different from the last model if you have it in the Magic Keyboard. What really makes the difference is the new Magic Keyboard hardware. So that's greatly improved, especially the trackpad. It feels much better, and that's what makes the biggest difference for me. In terms of the iPad itself, I think it really depends on how often I will use it without the keyboard, so I'll have to test that. But it's still super impressive how thin this is. So I think I'm gonna try to use it as often as I can without the keyboard. And I'll just have to see how practical that really is with this size, because even though it's lighter, it's still a really big tablet. For now, first impression is really good, especially from the display. This is like the brightest display Apple has ever had in this size. It's up to 1000 nits for SDR content. For comparison, the current MacBook Pros are only up to 600 nits for SDR content. So this is really super bright, and you can see it immediately if you like crank up the brightness. And it also just looks beautiful, like the colors, everything. Like this tandem OLED really seems to pay off in terms of the color reproduction. Also, it's just super impressive to have this small of a device and have it be this thin, and essentially you get the same power in terms of the CPU as in an M2 Max. I'll have to see if that really translates to any real world workflow on the iPad, but I will try to do that, because as I said, I will make the experiment to use this exclusively as my only computer for all of my YouTube and personal stuff, because of course for my work, for my job, I still have a separate MacBook. But for everything else, YouTube and everything I do, I will use this exclusively. So I will also try the new Final Cut Pro version 2 as soon as this comes out. I tried version 1 of Final Cut for the iPad last year. I was quite impressed for the V1, but I was still missing some features. So I'll have to see if the version 2 improves on that. But I'm very excited, it's just not out yet. It says later this spring on the Apple website, so I don't know, it's like middle of May, we'll see. It can't be that late if it says later this spring. In general, from the reviews I've seen so far from everyone that got it early, I think most people's reviews just boil down to impressive hardware. It's still an iPad, and yeah, that's what I want to try out, because I think many people have been saying that for such a long time, criticizing iPadOS, even though Apple has been adding features more and more. And maybe it's further than we think, just because we always like go in with this mindset of, okay, this is just iPadOS, it's not as good as macOS. So I want to really try to have an open mind and see how well this works as a laptop or as a personal computer, as your only personal computer. And then also, of course, many people point to WWDC. I think we had the same situation with the M1 iPad in 2021, where we were expecting a really big change in the iPadOS and we didn't get it. So I wouldn't get my hopes up too high, but at the same time, that being said, of course we might get a huge surprise, I just wouldn't count on it. Even so, you still have the return period if you start your return after 14 days, so you could technically get this now and then wait what Apple announces on WWDC, and if you're not satisfied, just return it. The second criticism is that it's just too expensive, and to that I say yes, it's very expensive. I mean, this with all of the accessories is super expensive, and obviously the more reasonable choice is an iPad Air, because it gets really close. It does almost everything the iPad Pro does, almost as well. So it's probably the more sensible choice for almost everyone. But honestly, we're on a tech channel here and we're not here to make the most sensible choice all of the time. Sometimes you might just want the best iPad out there. And it is much nicer than the iPad Air. The screen is much nicer. It's much faster in terms of the performance. We'll just have to see if we can take advantage of that. And honestly, this is just about finding out what the best iPad experience is, because the iPad Air, well, it's nice for the price, and I really like that it has a larger version now for everyone that just wants to get a large iPad. It's basically the hardware from the iPad Pro from 2018 made worse because it lacks promotion, just with a faster processor at the same time. So it's just not that exciting. If you're here to see what the best iPad does, that's where I want to help you out. Okay, that being said, I will now take this to its paces. I will have to install all of my apps. I'm trying to also use this then for video editing. I hope Final Cut Pro 2 comes out as soon as possible, and I will report back. There will be many more videos out on the iPad in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for 1,000 subscribers, and I'll see you in the next one.